Alrighty then, this morning I'm going to get some beef stock going, and the way I accumulate pieces for my beef stock is I will save steak bones that we have, cuts of meat that we have from something that I've cut off, and I generally put my onions and those type things into my compost pile, but for the last week I just saved some of the cut-offs and of course I call it the paper covering on them. So it's a big day making some beef stock, and it ain't hard, it's just canning. It may not be pretty, but it's sure gonna work. So I get them, my onions are in the bottom, I'm gonna add some celery, that's about ready to obtain its better day. I'm gonna just cover this with water and then get this simmering all day. It's just beef stock. A needed necessity in the kitchen. So I've tossed some celery in there, 1 carrot, and I don't have to worry about anything. I'm not adding any seasoning to this. I'm just making a stock. So because I don't have to worry about my carrot chunks that I didn't peel, because I'm going to strain this before I get it into the canning jars, so I'm going to let this simmer all day, do its thing, and get myself a rich broth going. So you can see right now we have nothing, right? It's not showing any richness because we just started. Beef broth, it's what we're canning. So it came to a boil and I moved it off my super burner, and notice I don't have a lot of water in here. What I have is a lot of meat. I put 2 bay leaves in here, and already we're getting a richness color that we didn't have before. So I don't over add water to it, just leftover parts, and I will let this simmer for hours and hours. I don't add any salt, I don't add any pepper. I can do that when I use the beef stock, and I can it into pints. So I don't want anything too salty like I get at the store, so I can season it when it comes out, but it'll have a lot of flavor. So now it's just going to simmer away. I'll put the lid on it and let it do its thing. I didn't say it was purty. I said it was going to be beef broth stock. So it ain't purty right now, but it's going to be. So 5 hours in, and we got some purty rich broth compared to what you saw at the beginning. And here's a good example of why you never give your dog a cooked bone. Look at those pointy pieces. That's what can get really jammed in their throat, or worse, their stomach. So I'm going to keep it cooking a few more hours and have some really righteous broth to pressure can. And like I said, I'll be straining it. This is some beautiful stuff right here. It ain't hard. I have had the large pot, it's a Magnolite pot, very heavy, simmering since about noon, I think, and I had it on my little simmer mat, and it has remained at a steady boil. All the meat has fallen off of these bones, and it's a very rich looking broth. Just what a difference from earlier. So I'm going to strain this. I'm going to leave this off for about an hour, let it get beyond molten lava hot, and then what I do is I drain it through one of these. Strain it out. I also put a piece of cheesecloth over it, and then I usually drain it into a pitcher that is specifically for draining things. Or I may decide I have so much I put it into another pot, which might be easier because I ended up with so much broth. But this is some purty stuff. All I'm going to do is can it up in some pint jars, pressure can it for, I'll check, but I believe it's 20 minutes for pints, 25 minutes for quarts. So this is just how I drain mine. It's just how I do it. Works. It's kind of simple. I've got this going into another Magnolite pot. I mean, this broth is beautiful. There's a kettle going in the background. And I'm going to continue to strain it through here. I will check it after I get it through. I may need to readjust a new piece of cheesecloth, but regardless, this is going to be a rich colored broth with no chunky business in it when I go to can it. It ain't hard, just canning. So here is some righteously rich broth in a very large Magnolite pot that I strained through a strainer and the cheesecloth. And I have my lids going in some hot water on the back. They are ball lids, which I'm none too happy with the changes. So I have been switching over to Orchard Road lids. But in this case, because this is beef broth and something I'm going to use fairly quickly, I am going to use these. But as I replace lids, I am only purchasing Orchard Road lids. So now, I'm going to can me a jar of my righteous stock. And I need 1 inch of headspace. I'm still going to use my Pokey Joe in this, even though this is a liquid. I just do it. And then I'm going to wipe that rim really well and set it in my pressure can. So we'll see how many we get. Never know. My jar is hot because my liquid is hot. And I do not need a jar breaking. Alright, so Pokey Joeing. Wiggled around. Now that is not enough. There we go. Pokey Joe again. And I want to wipe this rim even really, really well. And let me get one of my ball lids, which will never be here again once I'm done with my stockpile. And I've got a fingertip tight, which for me is a limp wrist. Fingers, that's as strong as I can do them. And because this jar is hot, I'm going to pick it up with my jar lifter and set it in my canner. And then I'm just going to repeat that and see how many I get. So another hot jar, going for 1 inch of headspace. And like I said, I'm still going to use my Pokey Joe. This is some beautiful, beautiful stock. Not heavily salted like what we get at the grocery in a can of one of the soup makers. A lot of my friends will not can stock or chicken broth because they say, oh, it's so cheap to buy them. Well, I know what I'm eating in this. And it is not heavily salted. And it's from some beef bones that I had saved up in the freezer and some little chunks of beef. So other than jars, lids and rings, and some power, I didn't have to coupon, wait for a 4 for something sale, or do any of those things. I can do it at home. I want something that long term I can do for myself. Snippy, snippy now. Simmer down. Let me get my glove on. This jar is hot. So again, a limp wrist. Fingertip tight. And this jar is hot. So I have the small Presto canner, and I can hold 7 pints in mine, and that's exactly how much I got out of here. Certainly not enough left to make a pint. But I'm going to go ahead and get my lid on this, and then get it, in my case, get it venting for 10 minutes. Inside the jar over here is a line that shows the line for this pressure canner. I pour a little bit of vinegar in there, and then I fill with water up to that line. And I have the rack on the bottom that you can see there. So I've got to get the lid on, crank up my super burner, and get this fitting. So my super burner is on high. Makes it very easy. There is a V here. There is on this arm of it, tells you which way to slide it down. It does have a rubber gasket, and of course that tells me you'll hear it when it closes. So I need this to come up. That'll probably take about 10 minutes, 10 to 15 minutes. Once that's up, I'll begin to time a steady vent of air, getting all the air out from the canner and around the jars. What I have to be careful of on the super burner is not to let the pressure begin to rise. Then, because my super burner is too much man, I do have to move the canner back onto a smaller burner. So it's been about 5 minutes, and now that has begun to bubble away, and it won't be long till it stands up straight. Then I can start timing my 10 minutes for a proper vent from here. So as you can see, that is up, and I have a steady vent, see if you can see it, going up the back. So I'm going to vent that for 10 minutes, and that sucker is going. Get our fan up to high, but I have a beautiful vent, and I need it to go 10 minutes. And my hood vent will pull all that moisture right out my roof, thank you. So my 10 minutes of venting happened, and now I have put on my little 10-pound weight for my area. You have to check your weight and your time for yours, your altitude. So now I'm waiting for my pressure to get up a little past 10. Then I'm going to simply move it back onto this other burner where I can put it between medium-low, and it will hold that pressure from 11 to 12 pounds for me for 20 minutes without a problem. When you put that on, of course, you want to use a pot holder, because remember that thing was venting some wicked steam for 10 minutes. This whole thing is radiating heat. It's very hot. So anyway, just waiting to get up to my 10 pounds of pressure, which is really 11. Anywho, just waiting on it. It's happening quick. Then I'll move it to the back burner, and because they're pints, the time for me will be 20 minutes. If I had quarts, it would be 25. So I'm on my back burner, and I'm right where I want to be here. Got my little rocker jabbing along, and I'm right on my poundage. So I'm starting my 20-minute timer now, but I also write down what time I started. I had a timer die in the middle of one of these. Had to start all over, but I was doing meat, so it was way longer. So anyway, 20 minutes. Here they are after 20 minutes and letting the canner cool down. Absolutely spectacular beef broth. I am totally digging it.